Good evening, and welcome to Unexplained Reality, the podcast about the weird, strange, and unexplained but real. We are delighted to have you with us. Please grab your favorite beverage, sit back, and enjoy.
Hello, welcome to Unexplained Reality. I'm one of your hosts, Brian Quinn, and with is my son,
Harrison Quinn.
Hope everybody's been surviving the pandemic. This pretty crazy environment that we're living in currently, but we're making it. I guess we've been in the house like 2 months now.
Yeah, about that.
Well, you're not. You're having to work outside.
Yeah.
He's one of the warriors out there working in the pharmacy, keeping people fed on medicine, keeping them going. So what's been going on other than that?
With me?
Yeah, who else am I talking
I
to?
mean, I don't know. I figured you were talking to the people.
Well, the people aren't going to be able to answer me.
Well, they can answer. We just can't understand them. It'll be in a different time.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Time's an illusion. Work. Our pharmacy's gone to curbside only, so it's a lot of running back and forth. So, I've gone from just kind of hanging out and doing nothing to running in and outside and taking a lot of extra work at work, doing what we do regularly, and doing it in the same amount of time, but also doing twice the work means also, raising the efficiency. So trying to shortcut things doesn't work because we've got to be very thorough.
Oh, yeah.
So we're still finding the balance between speed and thoroughness, but we're getting there. Other than that, working on the project car. It's my 88
Yeah.
Firebird. Pulled the engine out, sent the block off to a machine shop, got it back, put it together, dropped it back in. Got everything back together, ran it for the first time, got like halfway to the gas station and starts smoking through the center console. Not even through the hood, through the center console, like through the shifter. And I was like, okay, there's a problem.
Well, that could be that big gaping hole behind your shifter too.
Yeah, but the problem is not the hole. The problem is the smoke. So one of the coolant lines to the heater hose had blown off and was spewing coolant onto the headers, and it was evaporating. But also the heater core inside is cracked. So coolant was coming through the floorboards and through the AC vents, which was terrifying. Watching smoke come through the AC vents is a very perspective type moment.
Yeah.
You're
You have no
driving down
idea
the
what you're
road
biting into with that car.
white smoke comes out of your AC vents, you feel a certain way. But no, really, we're almost done with it.
I think you know now why that guy was so happy when
we bought it from
the
him.
car,
We gave him the money for it. It was just overheating. Had some coolant leaks and was overheating. We fixed the coolant leaks. Tomorrow we're going to fix the overheating problem. Some radiator fans, but...
Did those come in? They came in?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, we've had them for a few days, but I just haven't had a chance to put them on. We could do that tomorrow. I'm off work.
Cool.
But working on the project car, working at work. Between the two, I'm always outside, so now I've got a farmer's tan.
Mm-hmm. You need to get a haircut too.
Yeah, I do need to get a haircut.
Got to get these barbershops opened up.
Yep.
Jebediah looking rough.
Did you hear Elon Musk? Did you hear what Elon Musk named his son?
I saw it. Mom showed me the message where they posted it.
Yeah.
I don't have any idea what that's supposed to mean. It's like a bunch of symbols.
My friend decoded it, which was stupid. The AE sign is pronounced as ash, like ASH, And I don't know what the X is, but the A. My friend says that he's a big Elon Musk like fanatic. He says that the A12 is I mean it is the code name for the Lockheed. It's the Archangel is what it was called. The Lockheed A12 was the funky looking plane. It was in one of the Transformers movies. It's got the sharp tip and then it goes back, and then it's like the really long nose and it goes back into the two thrusters in the back. You can look it up. But so apparently the baby's name is supposed to be Ash Archangel Musk or something like that. Apparently there's
Okay.
something to that madness, but
Yeah. I know mom showed me that this morning, and I'm
Elon
Just-
Musk's I don't know if it was his
poor
Tesla.
kid.
I don't know if it was. I think it was his Tesla stock. He lost like 14 billion in Tesla stocks over a tweet. He tweeted and it said Tesla stocks are up. I'm missing out. And then, I mean, his stocks just like went straight down after he tweeted that.
Well, I just saw a report that they just posted a nice gain for this past quarter when the financials came out for.
Yeah,
uh,
I saw some video online where it was a guy calling his dad and telling him the Tesla stocks are up, and they checked it and they had gained like over 30 grand in their investments with Tesla.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, you're definitely seeing more and more Teslas on the road. So
yeah.
yeah, good for him. Smart guy. Just don't. Yeah. Poor kid though. When they
That's
get
what
older,
I told my friend. He went through and like decoded what the name meant. He was like, it actually has science behind it. And I was like, just name the kid Joel or something. Like,
right.
something the kid can pronounce or something other people are gonna know what it means, you know? Maybe Elon Musk knows what it means, but you know, people aren't
Yeah.
gonna see that and be like, oh, that's how that's pronounced. Like strange.
Yeah. I don't know. I've heard some
He's kind of
strange names for some kids over the years, but
His wife is strange.
that is not even a name. I mean, I guess it is maybe if you have the secret decoder rings, like
Your Ovaltine
It's just-
decoder ring.
yeah, it's just like X and some weird symbols -12. So, anyways, so what do you think about the whole coronavirus thing? What do you think about this whole Pompeo coming out and saying that they're pretty sure this came from a lab in Wuhan,
I think
which
it's
is pretty much what I said all along.
I think it sucks. I think that the virus sucks, and I think that things happen. Like I mean, the biggest so far to date, the biggest oopsie that I can think of. But
Was it a oopsie though? Do you think it really was a oopsie?
I really do think it was an oopsie because
If it's a oopsie,
maybe
how did they keep it out of Shanghai and Hong Kong?
who says it's out of Shanghai and Hong Kong? Because
Well,
we're
that's
getting
true.
we're getting
Yeah.
reports that are saying that nobody's infected there, but like the Chinese government's never censored anything before.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of big companies have corporate offices in those cities.
that's true. Yeah, but I mean, I don't
And
know.
I think that information would leak out
Maybe they went into
through those corporate people.
maybe they went into lockdown faster than everybody else because they realized, if it hit Shanghai, it would have been horrible because it's such a highly populated city, a
Yeah.
densely populated city.
It's very suspicious. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know, but
I don't know.
I'm not. I mean, I was pretty convinced that it probably didn't come from a wet market from the beginning. That there was probably something more behind it, especially when I found out there was a biological, I guess, kind of like a biological weapons lab there, basically is what it is. Or maybe it's not. Maybe they call it an infectious disease lab or
Yeah.
whatever. But since they had that in Wuhan City, but it is a little too coincidental.
Yeah.
But I'm not completely convinced that it was an accident.
And it's only half of the infectiousness and the spreadability and the blame of it can be put on the scientists. The other half is the people,
Oh yeah,
people who
are
are just
dumb.
today at work. I mean, it sounds so dumb, and I never thought it would happen. Just because the entire climate of what's happening right now, But I went out and I'm not going to say his name, but a retired doctor, somebody who certainly should know about what's going on and germ prevention, not having germs anywhere in your orifices or things like that. I'd given him,
Don't say that word.
we asked,
Orifices. Yeah, don't say that.
your face holes.
Just, or I don't know.
Don't get germs.
Or something.
Don't
That's not good either.
keep the germs outside your body.
There, that's better.
Is something that doctors should know. And whenever people come to the pharmacy, we get their identification and however they want to pay for their medication if it has a copay, and we take it in and we ring it out and then bring it back out to them. And certainly we try and do the best sanitation that we can, but we can't sanitize everything all the time because we would run out of sanitation equipment very quickly. So
Right.
we try and ration ourselves and do it as often as we can reasonably, but we can't get everything, we just don't have the supplies. Nobody does. And so I gave him back his driver's license and I went to hand him his medicine and he had something in one hand. So instead of setting something down, he takes his driver's license and puts it in his mouth and grabs something, grabs the iPad. Almost swear, cross my heart. The retired doctor puts the ID that's been in my hands, on my gloves, inside on the desk, in his mouth, and grabs the iPad to sign his name. And I've never, I had just like astounded
Well, maybe
me.
he has the vaccine.
I mean, you get the flu vaccine, you still get the flu. It's
Well,
not,
yeah.
I see what you mean.
You remember the video that
Yeah.
came out last week
Yeah,
or whatever, yeah. Well, yeah, me and Mom were in Greenville last Friday, and we stopped at a QT in the little gas station place, and to use the restroom and grab some drinks. And we went in and had masks on, and the place was buzzing like they were giving away gas. And yeah, it was right at lunchtime, so they have like a little lunch counter.
Essentially,
and stuff
they
where
are
they're selling
giving away
stuff.
gas now.
Yeah, and we went in, and people were looking at us like we were aliens. I mean, like we just
Like you were
landed
crazy.
a UFO
Yeah.
out front, and nobody had a mask. Nobody. There was one other guy I think I saw come out of there that had a mask on, and I mean there was dozens and dozens of people because it's kind of like a little truck stop almost. So there's a lot of industrial workers and construction workers, and there's a lot of people coming off the interstates. There's all intermingling of a lot of different people of different, I guess job functions and
Yeah.
just travelers and stuff. No mask. And then I went here last night to our local grocery store here, Food Lion, up in town. I had to be. I think I was the only person walking around with a mask, and people were looking at me like I was crazy.
Yeah, I think a part of it, of the infectivity and stuff of it, massively came from the big mess up at the beginning. The whole misconception with the masks.
Yeah,
They were saying, people were wearing masks, and people were calling the people who were wearing masks crazy, and they were like, it doesn't help. It doesn't filter out the virus. It doesn't, if you still get near somebody that has the virus, you can still get the virus.
yeah,
But if you have the virus and you're wearing a mask, it greatly decreases the percentage of, or the likelihood that you're going to infect somebody else through,
yeah. I think it's more
through what
what's
comes out
coming
of
out
your
of your
mouth.
face.
Yeah, instead of catching something from somebody else. It's if you have it, you don't want to spread it.
yeah,
So the infectivity rate from somebody who has it, and if they're wearing a mask, goes from like 70% down to like 5%, or 9%, something low. Not that it's not going to happen, but
right.
and almost to a safe number. So people were like, oh, people who wear masks are crazy and they're going too far, and it's not that big of a deal, and it doesn't stop it. And if it's not N95 or not a gas mask or not a full face mask, then it doesn't do anything,
Yeah.
And maybe it's not 100% effective, but nothing really is, That's the thing that we've kind of come to, is that you can't just use hand sanitizer. You can't just use a mask. You can't just wash your hands. You've got to kind of be clean in all of your practices to, decrease the likelihood that you're gonna get it or spread it to somebody else,
Right.
which is a mess. It's funny how it's just affected people's lives so differently. Like for me, it's affected me, but not in like an earth shattering way. I mean, I don't go to school anymore, but we still have assignments and stuff. Still go to work. Everything's basically the same for me. Just don't go to big gatherings or anything anymore.
Yeah.
But we have a new student at the pharmacy, and he was telling us about his story. He had it. He got it while he was in Barcelona, studying in Barcelona for pharmacy school. And that was right when it started to go down in Spain, and it started spreading like a wildfire. And they were like, okay, we got to do something about this. He was over there. He said it was like 2 or 3 in the morning. He was at a club in Barcelona. They're partying, having a good time. He's intoxicated. And, but I mean, it was legal. He was of legal age to drink. So, he gets a phone call from his mom, and he said his international plan, that text was no problem. Like they could text over Snapchat and they could text and it was fine. But the minutes were like expensive. So they only called if they really needed to call. So he gets a phone call from his mom and he's like, well, what's going on? So he answers the phone and she says it was like 4:30 in Barcelona or 3:30 or something in Barcelona. It was half an hour to midnight in the US. And she had called and said, that was when Trump had just declared that on Friday, nobody could enter the U.S. from outside.
Oh, yeah. Right.
He was shutting down all travel. And she was like, you need to get to the airport now. And he was like, I'm hammered in a country. I barely know where I am, in this city in Barcelona. So he finds his way out of his club, goes back to his hotel room, tries to get into his hotel room, but his key card's been deactivated for whatever reason, so he can't get into his hotel room. So they're trying everything they can, and he said he thought about just kicking the door down and getting his passport, because that's all he needed to get his passport. Everything else, so getting his passport, going to the airport, and then, once you're gone, they can't, they're not going to extradite you back to Spain for breaking down a door. So... But eventually they got into the room and he got his passport, and his mom worked for the airline and already got him a ticket for that night. And he made it on a plane within like minutes of the travel ban taking place. It was one of the very last flights that got into the US. And it was just like, that's so like, there's people, it affects people who have those close calls and stuff like that. And, me or you don't realize that,
Right.
We think that it's, we know it affects people, but it's not like it hasn't affected me in some crazy way, but it has affected people that I know in drastic ways. But it's just crazy living through this, just seeing how everybody's forced to change their lifestyles. Nobody's happy about it, but we're all just kind of adapting. And there's some people who just think that, it's whatever, and that, all this needs to end. Everybody's just overreacting. And I guess maybe they think that because it hasn't affected them drastically.
Yeah, they haven't been impacted by it.
In the first week we did our curbside, I can't tell you how many people were like, said like, this is too much, or like, this is extra, or like, I'm ready for this to be over. Like, it was too much. And that was like in the baby steps. That was like right as school was getting called out, right when the numbers was like 4,000 cases in the US. Now it's, over 1 million. It's just crazy seeing how it's progressed. Everybody was like, oh, it's not going to be that big of a deal. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. And it just kept getting worse and worse.
One of the earliest things, and I think I still hear it now, is people saying, oh, the flu's worse.
Yeah.
But it's not. I mean, this spreads so much faster.
Yeah. It spreads faster. It takes longer to incubate. You can be non-symptomatic and be a carrier and a spreader. Nobody really knows how long it can survive on a surface, because some people say it only lasts 2 hours, and then there's some reports that say it's lasted several days, like on the cruise ship. They were like, it only lasts 14 days or whatever, so they waited 14 days and reopened the cruise ship, and then it was like 17 days later people were still getting it from the cruise ship. So it's like what really, and maybe sometimes it does only last 2 hours, and maybe sometimes it does. It's just circumstantial, but that level of variability is something that we've never seen before in a common, maybe Black Death or Ebola or something like that. The very rare things that we've shut down very quickly because
Yeah.
they've prevented such a large threat. But people just tried to play this off like it was nothing for so long, and then it was a wildfire, and then people were forced to say like, I'm wrong, we should start doing something about this. I think maybe that was a part of it. People didn't want their pride to be put down because they were wrong. They didn't want to admit that they were wrong. But I mean,
Well,
really, I don't know.
I mean, human nature is people don't like to be put out.
Yeah.
They don't like to have to change their ways and be uncomfortable. And a lot of that is what's going on now. I mean, it's an eye opening experience to say the least. And as far as pandemics go, I think this virus is pretty slamming for for a pandemic. I
Yeah.
mean, it's incubation period combined with
It's
it's
no joke.
the way it can be spread and the uncertainty, and it appears to be morphing in some ways. And I heard something last night that like 15 children in New York City are like in quarantine because they've got some mystery illness they believe is related to COVID-19, but I don't know the details of that, but there's something very strange about it that they're very concerned about these children and what's going on. But it appears that the virus is morphing and changing,
It's just a mess.
making it worse.
It's a huge mess.
Yeah, it's really bad.
People are used to, bacterias and infections, but we really haven't had any experience with viruses. We've had like the flu and stuff, but it's not like nothing.
Yeah, just stomach bugs, and you have just normal run of the mill viruses,
but nothing on this scale.
No, this is
maybe,
crazy.
Yeah, maybe in one person it's not that bad, but when it's spread across, everybody, when everybody can spread it and everybody can get it, it really is like, maybe it's not going to affect you, but who's to say it's not going to, kill the next person it gets to?
Well, I think the this everything we've been talking about in the characteristics of this virus as we know it, I think it even that kind of screams that is this something that was engineered?
Yeah.
It seems a little too perfect.
It's perfect. Yeah. It could be worse, but if it were, it almost seems like if it were any worse, maybe it would kill faster than it would be able to spread.
Right.
So it's like right at the point where it's at very, very, very high infectivity.
Yes, it's a sleeper. I mean, because by the time you got it, it's too late. You've done. Who knows who you've spread it to?
Yeah,
it's like the perfect agent to do.
It's like, I mean, I hate to say it, but it really is like natural selection, like spreading its way through. It's like the perfect bug. Maybe it doesn't affect the people who are healthy, but the people who have pre-existing medical conditions or weakened immune systems or asthma, just even light stuff.
Well, it seems like at the beginning of this, I heard somewhere somebody described this as a depopulation mechanism.
It could be, yeah, very well.
That's crazy, but I know this is not necessarily what our podcast is about, but to us, I mean, it really is. It's an unexplained thing, and it's a very serious, something that none of us. Majority of us alive today have not experienced anything like this. We know there's certain people in the population, my mom, your grandma, who lived during World War II, and she saw, stuff that we can't imagine.
Yeah.
But this comes very close to it because we're going to grocery stores and there's nothing there. Yeah. Limited things that are available. Now we're talking about a meat shortage because so many meat workers have come down with coronavirus that they had to shut plants down. For whatever reason, was toilet paper shortage and all kinds of paper products weren't available. Um, so these are things we haven't. We're used to. We're in a society where we're used to. If we need something, we just go buy it, and that the stuff we've been needing, this wasn't necessarily available. So
Yeah.
but anyway, so the jump subjects from that. Did you see the Pentagon release the UFO footage last week?
I did, but I haven't watched it.
Yeah.
I've seen people talking about it and talking about like tweets and stuff of people being like the government just confirmed that aliens are real and nobody cares. Like I've
Well, I
seen a
mean,
bunch
they
of
didn't
stuff like
confirm
that.
aliens. They just confirmed that we got these things flying around. We don't know what they are.
Yeah.
So I don't. Yeah, that doesn't necessarily scream aliens. I mean, there's
Yeah.
probably a fair chance, especially when you look at people like Bob Lazar and the things he said, and which that documentary is pretty great too. About him on Netflix. Was it on Amazon Prime? But yeah. I mean, it's fascinating. It makes you wonder what the government's end game is there. Is this their a lot of people saying this is their step into uh what's it called uh what's the word what's the term I'm looking for um yeah, basically is this their step into uh start feeding the public the reality of UFOs. um but yeah, who knows. um Trying to think, there was something else I saw the other day that I want
Um,
to talk about.
I saw a post the other day, and it was telling people to go look up this declassified document from the CIA. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, called the Gateway Process.
Mm-mm.
And so it was declassified, approved for release, 2003 September 10th, Department of the Army, and it basically was uh, the CIA tasked. I can't remember what doctor it was. It was in Fort Meade, actually. I didn't realize that. Fort George G. Meade, Maryland. But essentially, the CIA had tasked an Army general with having these people go through a thing called the Gateway Process, which really was them trying to meditate to a point of transcendentalism, to where they would go to like other realms and dimensions and stuff.
Is this like remote viewing?
Kind of similar to that, but they, in one of the paragraphs, they were describing the deep meditative state, saying that they could literally transfer their consciousness to other planes of dimension where other higher beings lived and were in other dimensions, and that there were other beings that could give them answers that we couldn't fabricate, that we just couldn't understand
Wow,
with our
that's
current
crazy.
means of thought. And I mean, really, it's crazy just reading it, just seeing it is just bonkers. Really, is weird. Number 5 of the intro. This study is certainly not designed to be the last word on the subject, but I hope that the validity of its basic structure and of the fundamental concepts upon which it is based will make it a successful guide for USAINSCOM personnel who are required to take the gateway training or work with gateway materials. Wayne McDonnell was the lieutenant colonel tasked with this. Introduction. In order to describe the Monroe Institute technique for achieving altered states of consciousness, i.e., the gateway experience, involving brain hemisphere synchronization or hemisync, the most effective way to begin is briefly profile the basic mechanics which underlay operation of relied methods such as hypnosis, transcendental meditation, and biofeedback. It is easiest to effectively describe what gateway is by beginning with a short description of those associated techniques. Um, and it's crazy. It shows homunculus and all kinds of stuff. Have you ever heard what that is? Homunculus.
Hmm.
Basically, somebody takes sperm and they implant it in an egg and grow like a life form from
Oh
just
yeah,
an egg,
you told me about
and
that.
it can form these like. There's these videos on YouTube of this one guy who lives in Russia, and he made one. Nobody knows if they're real or fake. Some of them
Right.
certainly look real, but there's towards the end, he ended up like vanishing from his YouTube channel, and it got crazier and crazier towards the end. So people were wondering, like, was it a
Maybe it
complex
ate
form
him.
of satire or something? Yeah, like that. But they talk about all this like in CIA approved documents, homunculus, and they've got all different views of the brain showing. I mean, I mean, ventricles and apertures and aqueducts and all parts of the brain, talking about just synchronizing the hemispheres of your brain, and it's 29 pages long, and it has visuals like that, you know, which is like why what could that have to
What
do?
is that?
A torus, stylized rendition of a simple torus, and universal black hole, white hole, nucleus, hologram, direction of space time evolving is like
What?
that's like an insane diagram to have in
Yeah.
a CIA Department of the Army declassified document. You know,
Right.
that's like insane. That's like Project Mockingbird type stuff is on the Ruby
Wow.
Ridge type stuff is like crazy. I mean, I'm gonna read through it tonight completely. I just got the gist of it. I haven't read it, but it's just that whole the thing you were talking about with they released the footage of the aliens or the UFO, the
Yeah, the
unidentified flying
UFOs,
object
this radar footage. Yeah,
is like
it's basically the same. I don't know if this. I don't think it's the same videos, but it's basically the same as what the USS Nimitz footage was.
yeah.
But yeah, oh yeah. I mean, there's no doubt that there's stuff going on that the government obviously isn't going to tell the population. So, but I mean, to the point, I can understand it because I mean, look at what's happened with the pandemic. People buying like crazy, hoarding hand sanitizer, toilet paper, and that type of stuff. I mean, could you imagine if you told everybody that in the U.S. that there's actually alien life form and UFOs and they're all real,
Yeah.
and we've been dealing with them for many years. Could you imagine the pandemonium that
Yeah.
would come from that?
That would occur.
Yeah.
I'm just reading through this and it's talking about the advanced techniques, problem solving, patterning, which sound reasonable, color breathing. The next technique is called color
What breathing?
Color breathing.
Color breathing.
Is designed to use the expanded awareness and highly focused attentiveness associated with Focus 12 state to imagine various colors in particularly intense, vivid manner. Energy bar tool. Magic wands and enhanced scepters have often been part of folklore and occult practice in many cultures. The scepters, staffs, and maces carried by monarchs and high priests alike occur with such frequency in the history of the bygone era as to suggest, at the very least, these items are aspects of some type of archetypal symbol which the human mind seems to appreciate, perhaps quite subliminally. In any case, the energy bar tool involves envisaging an imagination with an enormous energy until it is virtually pulsating. The participant then extrudes the dot into the shape of a sparkling, vibrating cylinder of energy, which he then uses to channel force from the universe to selected parts of his body for the purpose of healing and revitalization. Next advanced
Sounds like
technique,
somebody's tripping on acid. and
remote
wrote this.
viewing, and then living body map, travel into the past, the future, out of body movement. I mean, the role of REM sleep, information collection potential. They're talking about how, going out of body experience can be used to gather intel.
Well, yeah,
it's,
yeah.
it's insane.
I mean, that's kind of what. I mean, in some respects, that's what remote viewing is.
Yeah.
But I guess it's not really outer body, outer body, outer out of whatever the
Out of body.
out of body experience. That they're taking. I guess their consciousness is
Projecting
it to another location. But I mean, I've heard stories. Was it what's the guy's name? Ingo Swann, the famous remote viewer that supposedly he was remote viewing to like the dark side of the moon. That there's a army base there, a military base, U.S. military base on the back side of the moon. And yeah, I've heard stories about guys not only remote viewing, but these guys that claim to have been abducted as kids and then taken and put in these like work camps. And they went and had these whole careers where they worked in the government, in the military, were trained, sent to the moon, and worked on these bases on the backside of the moon. But then they were returned to their base. They were abducted like aliens, abduction kind of deal. But they were only gone 5 minutes. But in those 5 minutes that they on in this dimension, when they were gone, in this other dimension, I guess, whatever, they were there for 20 years and worked on these bases and stuff. Yeah. It's crazy. It blows your mind to think about. But I've heard there's multiple guys out there that claim that this happened. It's real. Of course, yeah, who knows? I don't know, but weird. I mean, look at what was the project they did where they were doing hallucinogens and stuff, MK Ultra or whatever?
Yeah, MK Ultra.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, this
seedy stuff.
I'm sure there's, and you think about it. I mean, all they really need is one guy to do it. Yeah. That's smart, thinks up this stuff, and has degrees behind his name, and he convinces somebody to give him money to try these things, and who knows? I mean, maybe there's something to it. Maybe it's just a madman, But anyways, trying to think if there was something else I thought we needed to talk about, but I can't think of what it is right now. Did you have anything else you want to talk to before we get into the interview?
Not that I can think of, no.
All right. So tonight we're going to talk to Logan, and Logan had some very interesting encounters. The main one that piqued my interest, the one I heard about initially when I contacted him, was his crawler, or a lot of people call them rakes. He had an experience in Minnesota when he lived there with one of these entities or creatures, and so we asked him to come on, and he agreed to come on and share his experience, and that evolved into some other things that he's encountered, and experiences he's had. So anyway, so we'll jump into that. You got anything else, buddy?
Nope.
All right, let's go talk to Logan.
Honestly, my biggest experience that I've ever really had was the one where I lived with my aunt. I lived with her for maybe about a year, and this one happened in probably mid-October-ish. And I used to work at the Walgreens in Chanhassen, Minnesota. I don't exactly remember the exact address of it, but one night I would usually work the closing shifts, and one night we didn't get to leave until a little bit later than what we usually used to, because we just had a lot of stuff, and I believe we had one of the higher ups come in check some stuff out around the store, so they wanted to make everything look nice. But that night, I kind of knew that something weird or bad was going to happen because the moment I left for work and hopped on my bike, I had that feeling that you get like, when something's going to go bad or just something not good is going to happen. Like I had that sinking feeling in my stomach.
Right.
And on the route that I take to go home, it's like for about 10-ish minutes. It's just like, normal city. There's like buildings, street lights, busy streets. And then it veers off towards a park, which it's like very naturey, woodsy forest. There's like a lot of condensed trees, shrubs, and it even kind of goes downhill, and some parts of the sidewalk split off into nature trails. And it's like at that area where the streetlights pretty much stop. This road's less busy, and it's just pretty much pitch black. So usually, like once I get to that part, I'll go on my phone and put on YouTube or music or call up someone just to, kind of have something there to keep my mind from wandering and letting the darkness kind of make me see things.
Right.
And I was like looking down at my phone for about maybe 2-3 minutes when I heard like a weird screeching, chittering sound. I don't really know how to describe it, but then like that's when I like at first like when I was looking down at my phone, I kind of like saw a pale figure, like the feet standing, and as I looked up, I saw this thing was like 7-8 feet tall, kind of hunched over, very thin, very frail looking, and it's like at least in the moonlight, it could have just been like the moonlight reflecting on it, making it look like this, but it kind of looks like how when you see like an aged bone, it's like a whitish, yellowish color. That's what its skin kind of looked like.
Right.
And then when I saw its face very briefly because like as soon as I looked up at its face, it pretty much jumped on all fours and leapt into the woodsy, naturey area. And then like after I saw that, I was like freaking out. So I'm like, okay. So I stood up on my bike and just began to pedal as fast as I could. And like that's when I noticed that I could hear like leaves snapping, branches snapping. Like this thing was chasing after me, and it like wanted to get me. And the thing that kind of really weirded me out about it was that this thing didn't seem like it was getting slowed down by anything. Like the area that it jumped into, like it's downhill, so it's like a slope, and there's a bunch of trees, shrubs, bushes, stuff like that all in the way, and it didn't sound like anything was impeding this thing or slowing it down at the least. And this thing's chasing me for about a good 3-4 minutes before the tree line stops, and then it comes to this flat, hilly area. So there's like no trees, it's just a small, flat hill area. And this is the part that always kind of weirds me out and makes me not sure what it was that I had seen, because once I got to this area, I kind of stopped to catch my breath because it sounded like the thing just stopped. It wasn't chasing me anymore. And after about 10-15 seconds of catching my breath, I smelled like someone baked a fresh blueberry pie. It was just a very blueberry pie scent. And the thing is that around that area, there's like no houses, no restaurants, no buildings of any kind. It's just land, except like across the street maybe, which is like it's a long time before there's a building, so it didn't really make sense for there to be that type of smell around there. There's no like any bushes or anything with blueberries around there either.
Right. Yeah, that's strange. I don't think. I've heard a few cases of people having these type encounters, but I've never heard of having a smell like that. You would expect like something like sulfur smell or something if it's like a paranormal or ominous kind of encounter, where people get that, but nothing like a sweet, pie smell.
Yeah, but the best thing that I can think of why I smelled that scent was that maybe it knew I was afraid of it, so it was trying to draw me towards it or draw me into the woods by using a scent that I really loved and was familiar with. So I probably just assumed, hey, if I go with this scent, maybe he'll come closer to me.
Right. Yeah. And now, go ahead. Sorry. No, continue.
I was just going to say from that point on, like as soon as I smelled that, I pretty much got out of there. And it was probably another 5-10-ish minutes before I got to where all the apartments and the buildings were. So it was at that point, I knew I was kind of safe. Like that thing wasn't going to come anywhere near me. So I pretty much I got to my aunt's house, quickly threw my bike into the garage, closed the garage door, ran up to my bedroom, flipped the light on, turned the TV on, and just basically was like a frightened child the rest of the night.
Right. Yeah. Well, I don't blame you for that because I don't know how. Yeah. Like I said, I've heard a number of people tell these type encounters, and I don't know how I'd handle that because
Hmm.
that is not. I mean, it's one thing to see like a cryptid like a uh, Loch Ness or like Bigfoot or something like that, but it's totally different to see a creature like a rake or a crawler.
Yeah.
Um, that's weird. Now you said you saw his feet first. You
Yeah.
noticed his feet. Did you happen to notice any details like were his feet like or its feet were they like a human's feet or
They were like a human's feet, except for I guess like the toenails or end of the toes to be. It was like kind of like long claw-like things.
okay?
Same
And
with the hands.
same thing with the hands. How far away would you say it was?
This thing it wasn't that far from me when I first saw it. It was at least maybe a foot or two away from me. Like I could have easily just bent over
Oh
a little
wow,
bit and reached his hand and grabbed me.
wow. And so I guess it was like it was just a naked being. I mean, it was no
Yeah.
just a pale skin.
Yeah.
What kind of like the eyes were? How could you describe more detail about its
It was
face or its appearance?
its face. It looked like it just like for the mouth and nose. It didn't look like it had him, but it just looked like it was like alluding that it had something there. So
Right.
like, and then its eyes were just too black. I don't know if they were like if the eyes themselves were just completely black or if it was just black holes, but it looked very sunken in. Its face was like very sunken, wrinkly looking, and its eyes, when it like first like quickly glanced at me before jumping into the woods, it like its eyes had like a yellowish eye shine.
Hmm. And I guess, and you said it went to all fours and then it jumped into the
Yeah.
woods. So, I mean, do you think? I mean, it almost reacted like it was scared of you and it was going away from you, but you think it went into the woods and then it was trying to call you in
Yeah.
because it followed you.
And and then a few days afterwards on Halloween night, which is just the most terrifying part, is that
Right.
it seemed to have like tracked me down somehow because about 1 or 2 a.m. that night, once like everyone pretty much went inside and there was no one outside, I heard that same screeching, like chittering sound. And for some reason, I decided to look out my window, and they're about 40, 50 feet away from the apartment or townhome area, by a tree was that creature. It had its hand. It looked like it had its hand on the trunk or bark of the tree, and it was kind of like leaning forward with its face up, like it was glaring at my window, like it knew I was in there looking at it.
Wow. That's I mean, it's terrifying
Yeah,
because so after, and you said that was just a couple days after the
yeah.
initial experience. Did you have any more encounters with this after that point?
No, not really, because shortly after it happened, like going into November for like probably say a week after it happened, uh, I didn't notice or like put two and two together, but like a week after it happened, my health really started to decline. Like I was working one night and my whole body went numb, couldn't breathe, was struggling to like even walk or move. So I ended up going to my manager and telling him what was going on and how I was feeling, and I ended up being hospitalized there. And uh, they did blood tests, urine tests, nothing came back as strange or anything like that, except for the EKG, which showed that my heart was giving off very strange readings. And every time they repeated that test, they would get the same readings back. And they just could not figure out what was going on with that. So it was just kind of weird timing that I see this strange creature, and then shortly after it, my health starts to go really bad to the point where they just ended up letting me go because they just wanted me to focus on my health. So I never really had to go back through that route, but there are a few times where I did try to go back there during the day, and I never really saw like anything. Like try to kind of bike around that area to see if maybe I could have seen where it could have came out of, like if maybe it came like out of some hole in the ground or something somewhere else, but just couldn't really see
Right.
anything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to take these entities or creatures if they are, but just by the appearance and the skin and the eyes and most sightings I believe happen at night.
Yeah.
If it is a creature, obviously it's a nocturnal because just based off of those details. But do you feel like? I mean, you said you felt like a feeling of dread before you even left work.
Yeah.
So I mean, would you say you felt like this was an evil or ominous type creature?
To me, yeah, I'd say it was evil or that it had an intent to do harm or hurt. Because like just the feeling I had beforehand, and then once I got home, and then the second time I had seen it, it just basically came with this feeling of like dread and like despair. Like it was an awful feeling.
Right. Had you that the town where this happened? Had you heard of any other encounters
As
with
far
this
as
creature?
something with the creature, no. But like shortly, like the night after, like once I got home after seeing it, like I quickly like Googled to see if I could figure out like anything, if there was any sort of sightings of something like this or whatnot. But the best I could find was things like paranormal things, like ghosts, haunted areas, and whatnot.
Right. And it kind of makes you wonder if these kind of encounters are somehow related. I mean, it's interesting because nobody knows what they are. I mean,
Mhm.
on Reddit and other places, you see a lot of people that talk like they know, like they have factual information
Yeah,
about these entities, and it's like, well, yeah, no, unless they've got some, some secret information that nobody else does. I mean, obviously these things are something that nobody understands.
yeah.
It's all speculation.
Yeah, like I
But
remember that night when I got home, I went onto Reddit and quickly like typed up this story because I didn't want to like forget it, or I just wanted to like share it to see if I could find any answers to what it was. And like the next morning, I woke up and it's like all the comments like, "Oh, it was a deer. It was this. It was that." I'm like, it's not a deer. What deer do you know is 7 to 8 feet tall, stands on two legs, uh, pale, thin, two
yeah,
black giant eyes, no mouth or no nose.
that oozes the smell of blueberry pie.
Apparently, yeah.
Well, everybody's a skeptic until they
Yeah.
have their oh shit moment. So, I mean, I've never had an experience with that type of entity, but you know, it's like one of our, guests we've had on before. We were talking about experiences here in South Carolina that a friend of his had with Sasquatch on his property,
Hmm.
and he was like, if any one of thousands of people, if any one of those is right, then we've got something.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's the same thing with this, and any unexplained. That's kind of what my thought process is with any of this, is that there's too many people saying the same things.
Yeah.
And if any one of them is telling the truth, then there's something
There's-
to it. So,
Yeah. To me, there's always like truth in something, whether it's a myth or a legend. There's always got to be some part of it that's
yeah,
true.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, that's for the most part, most of those stories aren't just fabricated. There's
Yeah.
very few stories that are just fabricated. But, um, now you said when did this happen again?
This was about mid-October to late October 2017.
2017. Okay. Wow. So that's very recent. I mean,
Yeah.
um, now you said since that happened, you've had not encounters with this, but you had other encounters, right?
Yeah. Mostly related to shadow people or ghosts.
Okay. Can you go into some of those? Would you be
Yeah,
willing to talk to some about that?
of course. One of my favorite ones, because this is like one that you can't really debunk, but maybe you can. There's just a way that I haven't thought about it. But one night, me and my mom, we were sitting in the living room watching some scary movie, and we had the blinds down and like basically the windows closed, so there's no way that anything from outside could have been like casted inside. And we were the only ones in the house, as my other brothers were all outside, and we were watching this scary movie. When all of a sudden we see this black, I guess like mist or something, step out from behind the entertainment system that we had, and then coalesce into like a humanoid shape, and it went in front of the window, blocking out some of the light from there. And then it went upstairs, and we heard like the audible footsteps as if someone was going up the stairs. And after that happened, we just kind of like stared at each other, like, "What the heck just happened?" And then we both kind of got up to see if maybe one of the brothers was inside, or if there was maybe something behind us, and we couldn't find anything.
Oh wow. Yeah, the house we lived in previously, we had experiences in there, and my wife one night had a shadow figure encounter. We had a daughter. One of our daughters had uh, some stomach issues. She would wake up in the night and would be in pain, have pain, and be sick on her stomach. And this would happen, sometimes at that time period. It would happen a couple times a week, at sometimes. And so one particular night, my wife woke me up and she woke up and she saw the shadow, out in the hallway go around and go down the steps. So she thought, oh, it's our daughter, having stomach problems. She's going downstairs looking for some medicine. So she jumped up and followed and went downstairs. When she got downstairs, she realized none of the lights were on and there was nobody down there. So she got super creeped out and ran upstairs and woke me up. And of course, I checked the house and there was nobody.
Whoa.
But she saw a full body, shadow person go down the steps, and she followed him. So, and we had a number of other, I mean, that was the only time we saw a shadow person, but there was a number of other, um, things that happened in the house. Harrison, would wake up at night and had somebody stand at the foot of his bed, a lady. And when he was real little, he talked to her and stuff and would tell us about her at breakfast in the morning. It was like, creep us out. But so I know where you're coming from with the shadow
Yeah.
thing. That's crazy.
That's kind of the first story you told, kind of similar to something that my mom experienced when she was younger and pregnant with one of my older brothers. She was staying at her mom's house, and she had noticed that the light turned on, and she saw a shadow of what she assumed was either her mom or her dad go downstairs and go into the kitchen. And she kind of followed her and didn't really see anyone down there. And the next morning, she had asked our grandma and her mom and dad, if they had gone downstairs at any point during the middle of the night, and neither of them said no. So she's like, so kind of the story there is kind of that they just assumed it was like our great grandma or someone that was just checking in on my mom to see that she was okay.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of how our encounters. We never had anything. I mean, at the time, it didn't seem like we were having a whole lot, but now looking back, it's like, wow, we had a lot of encounters, but none of them ever were like malevolent. They were always
Yeah.
harmless encounters. So what was your next encounter or experience?
Hmm. I guess the next one would be I was in Michigan at the time with a girlfriend that I was with, and one night. Now this, I don't know if it was a Michigan dog man or just some type of spirit, But they had a dog, and they kept it outside in the backyard in this like giant metal cage thing. So every night one of us would have to go out and let the dog out. And I went out, and it was probably I think December because there was snow on the ground and whatnot. And I went to go let the dog out, and I saw that there was this big kind of shape in the corner of the cage, and then the dog was towards where the gate door was. So I opened the gate, and the dog went out and went to my right side, and then I felt something go between my legs, and I know it wasn't the dog because the dog had gone up to the right side of me, and then I kind of just looked around, and behind this bush, small little tree thing that they had, there was just a pair of glowing yellow eyes, and then a couple days after that encounter happened, weird things just kind of started happening around the house. And this isn't like a countryside house, it's like in the middle of a place. There's a bunch of houses around it and whatnot. So I'm like, it just seemed weird that there was something like that stalking around the house. But like we'd see like yellow eyes out at night, or we'd hear just howling, and then all of a sudden all the dogs in the neighborhood would howl.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a misconception a lot of people have when it comes to different kind of cryptid sightings. Is a lot of them do happen in very populated places. I mean, you see what's been happening in Chicago for the past few years with flying humanoid sightings. I mean, Chicago, that's extremely populated place, and you wouldn't expect to be having something like that, showing up in that kind of environment. But Michigan is, supposed a hot spot for dogman sightings. Did you? So you didn't you kind of more or less saw a shadow. You didn't really
Just
see
saw
it
a
like
shadow and like glowing eyes. I never really saw like a full physical body or
right.
form to it. It was just usually the eyes, and then some weird stuff would happen. Like we'd see the eyes, and then like strong gust of wind or something would blow through our room, like causing something to fall over or whatnot. Like it never seemed like there was a physical form to it, just eyes, and then usually some weird unexplained thing would happen.
Wow. That's yeah, I mean, the whole dogman phenomena kind of, not saying that's what you actually did see. I mean, maybe it was, who knows, and who knows what the reality of the dogman phenomena is, but that's something that kind of fascinates me. And that was in what part of Michigan was that?
Port Huron. So it's like right on the lake. Well, not
right on the lake. Okay.
Yeah. It's within that area. The house was.
Wow. So after that, did you have? And when was that encounter? Just curious.
That, I think that was back in.
It was before you had the crawler experience. Okay.
Because I went from Michigan to my aunt's house, I believe. I think that was about 2015, 2016.
Okay. Still all relatively in the past few years. So, have you had any? Now I know you're at a different location now. Have you had any encounters or experience since you've been at that location?
Kind of. Both had experiences before I got here and then after I got here, but it's mostly like just weird, like audible things that I've heard like before I moved down here. Like there was one night where I was talking to my current girlfriend on the phone, and I heard like I was at my mom's house at the time, and we had this picture. I don't know. It was something to do with pictures. I was leaning up against the wall, and I heard tap 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 on it. And then I was the only one downstairs. This was probably about midnight-ish. So I was the only one downstairs, and there was no reason why I would hear tapping on that thing. So I went over to go look at it and kind of mess around with it, and it just really creeped me out. Like the back of the hair on my arms and neck was standing up. And then I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what could have caused that. So I just leaned it back up against the wall. And then about another 5-10 minutes later, I heard tap 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 again, as if like there was something there trying to get my attention, but it
Right.
wasn't. It was just tapping. And then usually I'd hear things like some woman, like a feminine, womanly voice calling out my name. And then that's also happened a few times where I've heard like a womanly voice calling my name, and like I go up to my girlfriend, hey, did you call my name or something like that? And she'd always say no. I felt like soft but cold, like a hand kind of caress like an arm or my neck. So it's just
Right.
been small little things, but nothing like too big. Just weird little things that I can't really explain.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated with that area of the country where you're at, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of strange stories that come
Yeah.
there from from a whole lot of a lot of different types of stories and encounters, from black-eyed children, which are some that just really that just really gets to me.
Yeah.
Those stories. One of the best. We actually had it on one of our episodes a few back. One of the best hellhound encounters I think that happened. I think it was in Arizona, but it was there on I-10. So it was that area of the country, but it was one of the hosts from OK Talk had that encounter from the OK Talk podcast, and but we had that on one of our episodes a couple episodes back. It was a very interesting part of the country for sure.
Yeah.
So have you had any other encounters that you want to chat about, or?
Still only other real other encounter that I really had happened when I was a little child. Something I guess it could just be explained as like a nighttime hallucination from a tired child. But it was that my parents they've been divorced since I was a baby, and so I would always see my dad every other weekend. And this is probably when I was 5, maybe 6 years old. My dad was living with our now stepmom at the time in her apartment, and it was probably late at night. I don't really know the exact time, but my brother and I shared a bunk bed. I was on the bottom, he was on the top, and we were watching Cartoon Network or something like that. And I remember kind of hearing something rustle in the closet, and so I looked over, and the closet door was open a little bit, and I could see 2 red eyes just staring at me. And then as a kid, obviously you're going to freak out. So I started screaming and crying for my dad. And it didn't take him, it took him maybe like 5 minutes to hear me and then come running in to see what happened. And after I told him what had happened, he turned the lights on, opened up the closet door. There's nothing in there. So then he's just like, all right, fine. I'll sleep in your bed and you can go sleep on the bed with your stepmom. So I was like, okay. So I went and did that. And it took me so long to fall back asleep because I'd like see some type of shadow kind of darting around the room, but never really able to focus on it. And I'd keep seeing images of skulls and faces in the shadows. But that was probably the first ever experience I ever had where I just saw probably the typical boogeyman in the closet as a child. And then
Wow.
after that, pretty much after that, I just started like noticing and seeing things more often.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people that have those type of visions or sightings, when they're asleep and wake up and see like I guess that kind of goes along with the Shadow Man sightings, but a lot of times they will describe him as having red glowing eyes. And it's wonder, because you've had a lot of experience. It makes you wonder if certain people are more prone to these types of experiences, and that maybe you're more receptive to them or something.
More sensitive to it.
Yeah, more sensitive. That's the word I was looking for. That's fascinating because I, I mean, to have those types of encounters, yeah, I think it's very interesting. I mean, maybe not so much for you, but
Yeah.
for me, looking at from this side, I'd be, if it was me, I'd probably been terrified in most of those. But yeah, that's fascinating. Um, Harrison, you got anything you want to ask?
I
You're
mean,
being
not
all
really.
silent over there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, he covered it. You covered it. It's just, yeah, it was what you were saying about in Michigan when you're when you had your sighting. You said you just saw yellow eyes.
Yep.
Did the eyes? I mean, did they have any shape, or was it just like kind of a reflection, like how, like when you
They're,
shine a flashlight in the woods, you see deer eyes,
yeah.
kind of
It
reflect?
looked kind of like the typical canine eyes, where they're kind of small, pointed, and slanted. Like, I don't know how to
Uh,
describe it, but it looked kind of canine-ish or lizardish, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
It's kind
How
of like
far off of the ground would you say they were? Were they abnormally, high off the ground, or
uh,
about what you would expect a typical dog to be?
I'm about 6'7", so this thing, the eyes, they look like they're at least maybe 5 feet to 5 feet
Oh,
5 inches off
jeez.
the ground. It's not like super tall, but just
That
a
would be a
couple
little
feet shorter than
disturbing.
me. Yeah.
That's about my height.
Yeah.
I'm not much taller than that. I would
Was
have
it
been
you?
terrified. I would have
You
been
in Michigan?
terrified. Oh wow, that's crazy. So yeah, that's I didn't think to ask that way. That's that that's pretty interesting because that would be yeah, I think that would go in line with like what your typical dogman sighting is when they see them on all fours and they're not standing on their freakish back legs. Well, we appreciate it, Logan.
Yeah,
We hope,
I appreciate you guys giving me the offer to talk.
sure, sure. We appreciate you agreeing to come on, and we hope you have a good night the rest of the night.
Yep.
You too.
So that was our interview with Logan, and what do you think?
I mean, it's crazy. That's got to be a very, jarring experience to be chased by something like that. It almost seems, I mean, to me, it seems like if what I would be thinking is if that thing's chasing me, that thing's probably a lot faster than I am.
Yeah,
I can run, but that thing moves, not just runs, but probably uses everything it can to move. And if it really wanted to
yeah,
get me, it probably could get me.
right.
And it almost, to me, it almost seems like an advanced, almost like it was toying with him. Like I feel like if it wanted to catch him, maybe it could have, and it was just trying to get him to give himself up or whatever. Because then he got out into the clearing, and then he said it was almost trying to lure him back in, like with that smell.
Yeah,
So it's like,
yeah. I thought. I mean, the whole those creatures or entities or whatever they are, they're just creepy all the way around.
yeah,
And I think all the encounters I've heard of, mainly most of them have been at night. So that just adds another creep factor. And yeah, I thought it was interesting how he described that the first part of his ride home was a populated area, houses or businesses or whatever. And then he gets to this one part, and he was always nervous about it because he would always have music or talk to somebody on the phone just to help him get through it. So yeah, I think he even said before he left his work he had that ominous, dreadful feeling. So I mean, it makes you wonder if this didn't have some kind of he was getting the feeling obviously before his encounter happened. So yeah, it makes you wonder what you're dealing with here. And then, like you said, after, I mean, if it was right on top of him and then it went into the woods, and then paced him,
Yeah.
and then came back out or whatever, and gave it off the smell or whatever, if that's what it was. I mean, but you're out in the middle of the woods or in an unpopulated area and you smell blueberry pie, and
Yeah.
that's his favorite. It's a little weird.
Almost seems like whatever it was taking sentimental value and like chasing him.
Yeah.
It was like taking a specific, like, almost like maybe joy or feeling, because if it was pacing him, could have caught him and ate him if it wanted to, but that's not what it wanted to do.
Right. But you have this in a lot
guess.
of unexplained encounters. I mean, you have people that claim that have Sasquatch habituation sites or whatever. They claim that they hear these creatures in the woods at night calling like their dog or something, but they'll be calling it with a very rough, they said it almost sounds like a deaf person calling for the animal. Or you have in like Fey folk encounters, people claim that they get the feeling that these creatures, encounter them in the woods and that they're trying to entice them to follow them. You have that in a lot of kind of cryptid or unexplained paranormal type encounters where the entity is trying to lure them in. So yeah, it's very interesting. But it seems to me that he is a like we talked about in the interview, that he is very sensitive to these types of encounters. I don't think everybody has the same sensitivity to paranormal or cryptid type encounters, and I think there's something that makes some individuals more susceptible to it. And I kind of turned this towards, like, when I was a kid. I got I was probably like in middle school, and I got attacked by a dog, and it was a Great Dane, and I was in hospital for like a week. So when I came out of that ordeal, I was terrified of dogs for quite a while. And I mean, even the small little dogs would terrify me. And prior to that, I love dogs. I could be around any kind of dog and be fine with it. But after this happened, I was terrified, and it seemed that all the dogs sensed it. Every dog I was close to sensed my fear and would just go off on me. So it makes you wonder if this is not some similar type situation with people, certain people in the population that are sensitive to these types of encounters, and they therefore have them more frequently than others. Because you hear this a lot in I hate to keep referencing everything back to Sasquatch, but a lot of people that encounter Sasquatch have multiple sightings. Some of them just have one, but there are quite a few that I've heard that have had multiple encounters through the years with these creatures. And I think it goes the same with paranormal and other types of experiences and unexplained encounters. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting because he had the crawler, the rake encounter. He had the Shadow Man encounter, possibly two, because the experience he was talking about when he was a kid in the closet could very well have been the same type of entity. Then he had what was the other thing? He had some sound like maybe ghost, paranormal, poltergeist type activity, noises and stuff like that, kind of taunting him. So, anyways, so it was a good interview. I'm glad he came on and talked to us, and it's very definitely had some very interesting stuff happen to him, and he's not that old of a guy, so who knows what else he's going to encounter in his life. But so we do have another. We're going to be having another episode coming out hopefully relatively shortly, we're going to talk to my guy from we met on Instagram. So you can look forward to that coming up in the next few days. Hopefully, we've been trying to get together with him, and we've been having to reschedule with him. He's been available, and we keep having to reschedule. So hopefully this weekend we're going to work that out and get together and chat it up, and we'll have that episode up as soon as we get that taken care of. And you have anything you want to chat? Anything else? Closing arguments, closing statements?
Not really.
Knowledge you want to share with the world?
The CIA sponsored remote viewing.
Well, we knew that.
Yeah. So did the Soviets.
Old news, man. Where have you been?
Soviets were spending 60 million rubles a year on
Rubles.
teletronics.
Electronics.
Whatever that is. We'll never know that. Maybe we'll know what the CIA was doing, but I don't think anybody will ever know what the Soviets were up to during the Cold War and before.
Nobody will ever know all that the CIA was up to.
That's true.
You might know a couple things that they want you to know, and who knows if that's even real.
Yeah, that's true.
The disinformation. They'll feed you whatever you want to know. Or feed you stuff that you didn't think you wanted to know that's not actually real, that never actually happened.
Yeah.
But, there's a huge black budget that's going somewhere.
Yep.
Makes you wonder.
Sure does.
Anyways. All right. Well, if you're good, then I'm good.
I'm good.
All right. Well, I hope everybody has a good week and that you stay safe and wear your mask, wear your gloves. Try not to spread your
cooties,
your snozzer cooties all over. And, stay safe. Yep. And social distancing seems to be the way of the world right now. And probably will be for quite a while. So carry on with that.
Carry on.
And happy Cinco de Mayo. See ya. Here at Unexplained Reality, we support our troops and veterans 100%. Our family has a number of veterans, and my son-in-law is active duty serving our wonderful country. We have come across a great veteran-owned company called Awesome Bad Clothing. They have some very cool t-shirts and hats, and best of all, they are veteran-owned. So go check them out at awesomebadclothing.com and let them know you heard about them from Unexplained Reality. And when you go to check out, type Unexplained in the coupon code box to get 10% off.
Liquor, 110 proof, pure grain alcohol. Barkeep, bring me a whiskey. Don't keep me waiting, come on down here and hit me. Give me a 6-6 water back. How about a Jim Beam or a Jack? A Boilermaker with a beer chaser. Anything to get my mind off of her. In a shot glass. Hey Bob, you better call my glass.